Good morning, everyone. As folks are popping in, you are attending KW Talent's CV and Caffeine. This is a short little event that we host with some co-hosts. Today, we've got with us Jessica Thomas from Virginia and Joseph Klosik from South Carolina. And today's topic is setting the stage for the KPA. And I'm going to turn it over to both of them to be my co-hosts. Introduce yourselves, tell the audience a little bit about yourselves, and then we can jump in on the topic. Jessica, I'll let you go first.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jessica Thomas. I am the Director of Operations for the Pace of Richmond Group here in Richmond, Virginia. So we are a real estate team that does around 150 units per year. We are a amazing KW Talent members. I've definitely got to be able to be a part of KW Talent since about 2022, early stages. And I've gotten to learn a lot from Liz and Angela. I look forward to sharing with you guys.
Well, thank you. My name is Joseph Klosik. As Angela said, I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm an operating principal for 3 Keller Williams offices. We have 2 here in Charleston and then 1 in Southeast Charlotte called Union County. We have about 510 agents between all of the 3 offices that we have there. I also have a team. My wife and I have a small team in Charleston. It's the 2 of us and an operations person. And I also have the opportunity to be a MAPS leadership coach, as well as a KW Master Faculty Trainer.
We've got a wealth of information with us today, some great resources. And for those of you that are first-time attenders, one of the things I want to point out is Jessica is not the rainmaker for team. This has been delegated to her to do the hiring. Joseph is more in the leadership role and he does a lot of hiring. So whether you are in any role within the Keller Williams ecosystem, setting the stage for someone to take the KPA is really important. You are their teacher for that brief moment. And Jessica, I'll go to you first. You've been with Keller Williams about 4 years, so you recently just took the KPA to be hired, and now you're going the opposite end of it. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I remember when I was told to take a personality assessment, right? I come from a healthcare background. So I'm like, oh yeah, taking plenty of these. I've got this under the belt. And I remember at that time, I wasn't really set up tremendously around that. You know, I was able to be told, this is what you need to look for. This is what it needs to look like. Make sure you do it when no one else is around type of thing. And so I remember taking it, being completely surprised when there was like puzzles on the screen, totally threw me off. I was like, what am I doing? I don't know how to do these things. And then just feeling really nervous, like, oh my gosh, what did that thing just say about me? Who did it say that I am? And what does that look like? And I remember just having the nerves on the other end of like, did it say I was good? What did it say about me? And so I remember that a lot. And I almost reflect on that almost every single time I do a KPA validation, right? And I'm having those conversations of being on the other side of this conversation, I think is so important that I've had that experience. So I understand the gift that I'm giving someone else.
You know, you make an interesting point, Jessica. I think it's so important because people, a lot of times, it's been my experience when you bring up an assessment, everyone's like, yeah, I've taken, a disc or something like that. And I think it's super important to set the stage that it is not just a question and answer, right? There are things there. And then, one of the things that you alluded to is it's not a pass fail. I think that's where we fall into this a lot. So
Yeah, for sure.
How do you prepare someone to take it now that you're in the role that you are, where you're saying to somebody, hey, now we're going to analyze you?
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where I call it the first official step, right? Because usually I'm having this conversation after I've had like 10, 15-minute phone screening kind of conversation to really kind of figure out, okay, I like what I'm seeing here on the other side. We're going in the right direction. Some of our culture seems to match, some of our values seems to match. Let's kind of go for it with the KPA. I want to learn more about you. So I always say it's the first official step of the process. I'd like to introduce you to something that we call our Keller Personality Assessment, or the KPA. It is an amazing test that was put together just for Keller Williams. It's going to be kind of fun. It's going to be kind of quirky. It's not going to be like any personality test you've ever taken before. It's going to give you some weird shapes. It's going to tell you it's timed, and it's going to ask you about vocabulary. You can't prepare for it because there is no right or wrong answer. You just have to show up. And what's really cool is at the end, it's going to tell us all about who you are and your strengths. And with that, I get to give you the gift of being able to sit down afterwards. We're going to have 60 minutes together, 45 to 60 minutes together. We're going to be able to go through that and make sure that the test actually read you right. That's one of the things that I kind of talk about.
I started approaching mine of setting it up more from like, this is a tool that we use to lead and work with others. And quite frankly, that's what happened with me. I mean, when I actually haphazardly joined KPA Talent because I had called Angela just because we've known each other for so long to say, listen, I'm struggling in this area. And I was actually just calling her as from her leadership ability. And she's like, well, how are you using the KPA to work through these? And I was like, oh, right. It's not just a hiring tool. It's a big step in the process, but really where most of the value comes in is how do you lead and work with someone? So when I'm setting the stage for someone to take it, it's like it is an assessment, yes, and it is part of our process and a big part of it. But one of the main advantages of having this tool is if we decide to get into a relationship together or get into business together, this is going to be a great way for you and I to know how to work together, right? And understand where stress may show up for you and where you may thrive. Right. So, I'm trying to set the stage again for me. I don't know if I have some PTSD with this, but, when I first joined the company, it was all about DISC, right? It was DISC. And DISC is great. This is not to mock the DISC or anything, but we began to then compartmentalize people or put people into boxes. And it's like, well, I mean, all agents are I's and all rainmakers are D's and all operations people are these. And it's like, this is not what this is. This is more where are our strengths, where are we going to strive, and then where may stress, where are there opportunities for stress to show up that we want to get ahead of.
And when you go to validate the KPA, what are some of the markers or evidence where you can say, yeah, I don't know if you really took this in the environment I suggested? Because they can take it at home. They could be invited into your market center to take it. Do you have a protocol of how you administer it, and how do you know when perhaps they didn't follow your instructions?
Sure. I can take that from my perspective first. So one of the things I always preface the conversation, right? So after I kind of tell them what they're getting into, I kind of say, what you want to make sure you have is a good 45 minutes to an hour to be able to take this the test. I said it is going to be full of time, full of your energy, and you need all of your brain space. So don't take it at the end of the day after you've had a full day with your kids or you've been at the work or anything of that nature. Take it when you can be fresh in the morning, and don't worry if you need a couple days to take it, right? Take it if you have to do it on Saturday morning when you're not having a work day or whatever that looks like. Take it at your comfort and your flexibility. But make sure you have enough of time to be able to allot for it, because it is timed. And if for some reason you go, oh gosh, something happened, or something pulls you away, or distraction, it's going to show in your results. So it's really important that you make sure that you're able to give your all to it, because the better you show up for it, the better you give yourself. The results are going to be a little bit more of a gift to you at that point, because we can know who you are based off the results. So
Anything you want to add to that, Joseph?
So you're talking about markers of where, that's the question. I'm sorry.
So after they've taken the assessment, how do you know whether or not they were in a quiet place, they were not interrupted, they were not distracted? How does that show up in the actual document or during your validation?
Yeah, so the document, and this is what we even talked about, is if you start to get a lot of middle of the road on all of the different traits, right? And I think what's interesting about that too, is a side note, is this is not part of today's call, but if you do see a middle of the road, dig deeper on that, right? To why someone's there. For me, I think where it shows up more for me to realize it is in the validation. So if you start to see where people are just, they're not giving it, a 9 or a 10, or they're saying, well, it's not this. That's a pretty good indication. And I think that's a good opportunity too, to say, okay, well, let's have an honest discussion, right? Like, this is pretty accurate. You know, I want to make sure, if you go as far as to say, I think you should retake it, I want
Mhm.
to make sure that I'm setting the standard for this like very clearly. You cannot fail this, right? Like, what you get on this does not automatically make you someone who's not going to get the job, right? Because
Yeah.
so it is for us to understand whether or not you're the best, your personality is going to be stressed, right? So, because you kind of want to subtly, you don't want to say, you're like, listen, if you try to manipulate this, you're just going to get a job that's going to stress you out. And right, so
Yeah.
so you gotta have the diplomacy in there, which I'm still working on. So yeah, I mean, I think if you start to see a lot of just contradiction in there, where they're not matching with it. And here's the deal: there's the beauty of this process is this isn't you going and saying, I read all this, Angela, and I don't think you took this seriously. No, I mean, they're going to start to see, this doesn't match. They're
Mhm.
going to know how they took the test,
Yep.
right? They're going to say, yeah, I probably didn't show up as strongly as I could have for this.
Yeah, and
Right.
they may say the UPS man rang the doorbell and my dog went crazy and the baby was sleeping and I was distracted for a few minutes
Yep.
and then I didn't get to finish it. Um, how often have you asked someone to retake it, Joseph? Any ever?
I don't know that it's a minimal amount. I
Okay.
don't know that I ever have. The only times that it has, actually, the ones now that I'm thinking, is it's shown up where people took it a long time ago,
Yeah.
and then never took it, which I don't think that's anything other than a coincidence for me. It came in there, but typically what happens is if you found people that have one taken that never got validated, which happens unfortunately, and don't do that. Anyone listening, don't do that. Always validate them. But typically, if you had someone order it or do whatever and then didn't take the time to validate it, they likely didn't take the time to set up the
Mm.
expectations. No judgment. Not trying to make assumptions, but there's a whole process here. And if you've got, we have a team that uses this a lot, and they do use it as an initial screening, and we're trying to have conversations with them of like, that's fine if you want to send a lot of them, but please validate them. So
Yeah. It's a gift, right? Like, you're asking somebody to take 45 minutes to an hour of their day to take a personality assessment, and then you don't even get the results. Like, I can take a 10-minute personality assessment on Facebook and it's going to give it to me like that. So why would I invest so much time in this process and not have someone actually share the results with me and validate the results with me, right? I love the validation process because I get to ask examples of how it showed up in their life,
mhm.
right? That's a lot of the follow-up questions in the validation is like, okay, you rate this a 9 or 10. All right, tell me why. And then, all right, and following those questions that are right in the KPA is always saying, provide me an example with this, da 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 da. And you actually get to see it in real life, and you get to learn so much more about that person, right? And
Yeah.
I remember on the other end of the KPA validation, like, I remember stopping the girl that validated mine at like 2 or 3 in, and I was like, this is too nice. Why is this so nice about me? Like, this is weird. This is
Interesting.
like a compliment. And I felt so weird going, yeah, that's me. Right. And I almost felt weird grading it a 9 or 10, like that I was, too nice to myself, almost of like, well, maybe I do have those strong skill sets. And what's really
And you
nice is
do.
that
Yeah.
even if your tendency in one of these might not be in an area that's going to mesh really well with your team or your supervisor or that role, your trait may be a little different than where we're kind of looking for in that area. There's still a positive out of that, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've gone through the KPA validation, and I'm sure, Joseph, you on the other side, where I get through that process and the person says, thank you, but no thank you, right? They realize they've self-selected themselves out of the opportunity that we're even talking about, because they've identified talents in themselves and skill sets in themselves, a workplace and environment they want to be in themselves, to be able to say thank you but no thank you. So Yeah.
Well, and I think that can be part of the setup too, Jessica, because you can say that in the setup and say,
Yeah.
listen, Angela, this is much of an interview with me as it is of you. Right. So, and what this allows us to do is once you kind of see, again, going back to this, we use this as a tool to communicate, work together, and lead. Right. You may discover in this, man, I'm learning some things about me that I should be maybe looking a different direction. Right. Because again,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the whole, I used to always be like, you use the word candidate and you're always being like, not evasive, but it's always like they don't have the job or the role yet. Right. That's why it's so important is don't get attached to the outcome and set that up ahead of time.
Yeah, for sure. Just be in love with the process, not the outcome, right?
Yeah.
That's what my coach always tells me, and I've heard that from Liz. I don't know how many times at this point reminded me from that perspective because it is all about that. And I'll say I'm often hiring administrative roles or hiring within a team. I'm hiring agents that I need them to come in and learn and adapt to our systems really quickly and really we run at a very high level. So I need somebody that's going to follow some basic instructions, right? So there's always like that person that says, well, I put in my, job ad that you've got to email me at this time or that time. Your job application isn't complete till you do this task that's hidden in the bottom of the job application. I think the KPA setup is can they follow simple directions, right? I set you up right in that conversation of this is how I want you to take the KPA. This is the time you have to set aside for it. This is how soon I want you to be able to set on that. We agree that you're going to get it done within the next 2 to 3 days, that you're going to do it. You're going to do it when your mind is fresh, not at the end of the day. So when I get it in my email box at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, I know that you were doing it in the middle of the night, unlike what we asked, or if it took you 6 days to complete it and I asked you to complete it within the first 2 to 3, I already know that you're not respecting the conversation that we're having and the agreement that we made. And so trying to get that agreement from that person, not just tell them, this is my expectation, but hey, can you get this done? I mean, we're coming up on a holiday weekend. I set somebody up today. I ordered a KPA for them just earlier today. I said, hey, look, I'm out Friday. I'm out Monday. Take the week. I'm not going to see my email till Tuesday. So if it takes you till Tuesday morning to do that KPA validation or your KPA, no worries at all. I won't see it till Tuesday. So you get in an agreement, you get in a conversation, and then that's like your first box check of, are they going to follow through on what we agreed upon?
We keep using the term validation, and just in case there's anybody new on this call, once you get the KPA results, you literally get 33-page document that walks you through what the questions are to ask. And there's really no need to deviate from those, right, guys? Like you just follow the system.
Yep.
I had to do a KPA for someone that was more in the marketing role, and we validated it fine, that we were like neutral with this person, but then we gave them examples of creating something that we wanted to do, and I never heard from them again. So the KPA is not foolproof. You still need to go through the other steps of the
100%.
process. Because like
Yeah.
Joseph alluded to, they may self-select out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you just said is always an important thing that was a E2P moment for me, or growth moment. And was that it is a small part of it's an important part, but it is a small part of the process. And it's actually more, in my opinion, it is more important part of the process to then lead that person should you hire them.
Mhm.
So I think that's why, like, if you're having trouble, like if you're thinking to yourself, gosh, this is a lot. I hear that all the time. It's like, oh, this is a lot to go through there. Okay, great. Well, if this is, but think about what if you don't do this, what it's going to look like to lead that person. It's just going to be that much harder. And you're going to have to go through the process to do that. And then it's going to be too late if you do start to self-discover. We always joke, my business partner and my GM, Vince Mariani, we actually take bets now on how long this process will take because he does not rush it at all. And it doesn't mean you're free from mistakes by doing that. It's still, not foolproof, but it is something that take the time on.
How do you handle if you get the results back and it shows that the person's a super low match for that specific role? How do you handle that with them? Do you offer them, hey, we also may have this other position open? Do you never call them back? Do you call them, shoot them an email and say thanks, but no thanks, you failed? Like, how do you work through something like that that could be uncomfortable for someone who's early on in the stages administering the KPA?
Yeah, that's not a pass fail, right? So just because they're low doesn't mean that they're bad as a person, right? One of the tools that I love to use is a job match tool, right? That's the one that does be able to tell you all of all the jobs in KW, where they might match to. So there may be an opportunity to introduce them to someone else within the Keller Williams system and the network. It's one of the greatest things that we do. I build my profit share through KPAing people because I introduce them somewhere else, right? My home is not always the home for them, but I can usually help find them the opportunity or where that may be with a lender or anyone else from that perspective too. And so just to say, if someone's low on the assertive scale, right? And I need a role where I really need that person to be persistent. I need that person to be direct. It really shows up in the day to day, right? They may not be a great fit for that role based off of their traits, but it doesn't mean that they're not a great fit for something that we have. And absolutely, I think we talked at the beginning, like, it's our responsibility as the person that orders the KPA that takes that time and asks someone to give them of their time is for us to do that in return. That's the expectation. That's our culture at Keller Williams. It's not something that it's not an option to not validate somebody's KPA. I don't care if it looks like they did it at midnight and it comes back and it's all zeros or all right down the middle. Like, doesn't matter. I owe them that back. That's how we do this here.
I could not agree more. I think, I mean, at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings here, and we can't sit here and say it's not a pass fail. It could, because if we do that, we don't validate or call them back. We've told them they failed. And so, and again, here's the deal, like, it's a kindness and it's a self-discovery. There's no, I mean, what a perfect opportunity to sit with someone and talk about how great they are. Their trends are, it is all positive that comes from this. And then you can simply say, listen, let me show you how the sausage is made behind the scenes and why you're not a good fit for this role. This is where you will stress. You would be miserable in this role because of this. You would show up stressful here. And if you're if you're running an organization like Jessica is, you can have other opportunities and you have these, or you can say, right now we don't have one, but let's do this, or let me put you in touch with people. That's a much more honorable way to handle it than just a, no show. It's not as easy, but it's definitely, you want to honor them.
Do you ever, one of the features on the KW Talent Portal is the KPA overlay. Do you ever incorporate that? And if so, is it on the front end as you're still working through the process to see if they're going to understand working with other personalities, or do you wait till after you've made the hiring decision? Or do you not use it?
Both is my answer. So I've got my trait behaviors right here. I have them printed out. They sit on my desk every day. Again, I'm in what I'm doing KPAs and hiring at a high level, right? It sets there, and what's marked on it also is mine. Because I'm going to be their direct report, right? I'm going to be leading this person. I get that opportunity. And there are things that we need to mesh with, right? There are things that we need to be on the same page with. There are other things that it's totally okay that we have different streaks, because I don't need a ton of me for sure. That is not one thing that I need. And so early on in the process, before I do the KPA validation, typically, I don't look at the KPA in detail before I do the validation, because I want to kind of walk through the process with them as well. The one thing that I will do is I'll look quickly at the traits and where they fell on the score, and I'll compare it to mine pretty quickly, right? Just to see, are there any markers that I'm like, all right, I need to get some real clarity questions here, right? I need to kind of do that. And then during the expectations conversation, which is like the very last conversation when you're making the offer and that process, the expectations conversation is where I actually show them how they scored and how I score and where we are together. So I just like put that all in the one little spreadsheet, say, this is you, this is me. These are areas that let's be honest, like, these are areas that we're going to be very different at. mindset. And that's why I hired you, because I want you to be great in this role. I'm going to be great in this area. And those are some similarities. And at that time, we can set the expectations. And what I love is being able to use that tool to like add to my 30, 60, 90 of like areas. Like I just hired my listing coordinator not long ago. And one of her areas that came out in the KPA is that she struggles to set boundaries sometimes, right? She'll set the boundary, but to hold the boundary is sometimes not her strength zone, confidence in that area. So we actually put that in our 30, 60, 90 as part of our goals to kind of really identify every week, what boundaries did I set this week? What boundaries did I hold this week? What boundaries did I struggle with this week? And so that came all straight from the KPA.
Awesome.
I don't use it actually until they've come as part of the team. I mean, I conceptually will just kind of have it in my mind, but I mean, it's for me, it's more okay, how is it working together and how it balances out? We honestly, full disclosure, we didn't use the overlay kind of thought process. We knew, we kind of were very organic about it. We're like, well, this is the reason this is showing up this, but having that physical, like that video in the portal about the KPA overlay is probably the one I've watched the most, just because it helps me on that one. I don't review before I validate, only because I don't need any reason to talk more than I already do. And if I look at it ahead of time, I'll automatically start. And I love what you're, because Jessica, I'm like you, I want to know how it relates to me. But then what happens is then I'll say that. I'd be like, well, yeah, for me, this is how, and I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I got to set my own personal boundaries or guidelines in doing the validation. Otherwise, they're like 4 hours.
Yeah. My
Everyone's
hardest
got
thing
that
was
time.
in the directions where it says, as the facilitator, don't smile, don't nod your head. And I'm like, I can't, I'm not a robot.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
nickname is charades because I use my hands so much. So yeah, it's very difficult. We've had a great group of people that have been joining us now for the whole session. What would be one mic drop moment or minute that you want to bestow on people? A quick lesson that you've learned, tidbit. Jessica, I'll jump to you first for wrapping us up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I love about the KPA process and being able to offer that KPA process is what a gift it is to people, right? I really want you to go in conversations with people as I'm giving you this gift. So if you haven't given that gift to the people you work with every single day, if you didn't KPA all of your team members that you work with every day, if you work really closely, maybe I work really closely with our assistant team leader here at the office. I was like, can I see your KPA? Can we sit down and talk about that? Because I want to understand you better, right? Like she doesn't work for me. We don't report together, but I work with her every day. And so one of the things that we have to understand is what a gift this is and make sure that we are sharing that with the person that's taking the KPA, that they understand that this is a really neat process that you only get at Keller Williams. You don't get anywhere else, right? And it's super exciting to be able to give that gift every day and think about that as a gift, right? Think about that when you go, oh my gosh, I don't have time to read through this and ask these questions. And why do I have to ask the same exact questions? And why do I have to keep repeating on a scale of 1 to 10? It's because you're giving someone a gift. When you go out to go shopping to give someone a gift, it's not always as fun to go shopping. I don't really like to go out and find all the things, but I love when the person on the other end opens that gift and sees it and the excitement that they have out of it. That's the opportunity that we get to give as the hiring person or the decision maker in this process at Keller Williams.
Gosh, I don't know how I could top that. So what I mean is, I mean, she's so right. I think at the end of the day, at our core as a company, like we're a training and consulting company, and we can't get away from that. So if we're truly going to act as trainers and consultants, we have to start with consulting them, right? And that's kind of what Jessica just described. That's the 1 to 10 dialogue is. So my mic drop would be is whatever you need to do to get your mindset and how important this is, you need to do that. Right. And what Jessica just described is a great way to do it because it is a gift. Because if you're not going to be bought in for it, you're literally just checking a box in a process. And it's going to waste an hour of them time to take it, an hour of your time to validate it because you're not taking it seriously. So whatever it is that you need to do now to adjust your mindset to get away from that, gosh, this takes so long, or just something else they're going to have to do that. And then do that by just going back and watching and listening to what Jessica just said, because I think that was a perfect way to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for your time. We appreciate everyone that stayed with us during this entire broadcast, and we'll be back next month in September. Thank you all for being with us. Have a great day.
Thank you.
you.